this computer. Okay, Dr. K. This is a naturopathic doctor who has a passion about helping you feel and look your best from the inside out. With a background in nutritional sciences, Dr. K finds that nutrition, when included with the treatment, can result in vast improvements in her patients. She offers special testing, including food sensitivity and hormone testing in combination with treatments such as IV, nutrient therapy, herbal medicine, acupuncture, as well as aesthetic procedures, including Botox and dermal filler. So presenting Dr. K.
Thanks, Kent. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining me today. I'm really excited to be here, and I feel really honored that you guys are here inside on a really nice sunny day to be here with me. I want to make this talk as valuable as possible for you. So throughout this presentation, I'd love if it was as interactive as possible. I've pulled up the little chat here, and I hope everyone can see their own chat. So if you have any questions throughout it, feel free to write it down so that I can remember those questions and make sure that I get back to you with those answers. And yeah, let's get started. So today I'm going to talk about weight loss, and I made this title Weight Loss Made Simple because weight loss, I realize, can be very complex and it can be very frustrating. So today I'm going to try to talk about the hurdles for weight loss that most of my patients struggle with, and how do we get over those hurdles. Okay, so here's my agenda for today. So we're going to start with introductions. I'm going to introduce myself, and I would like to hear a little bit from the audience as well. I'm going to talk about why weight loss is important. I've categorized 3 of the main hurdles that I see for weight loss. So I'm going to talk about each hurdle, go through some simple tips, and then talk about some programs that are available. So this is me in a lot of writing. My patients call me Dr. K. My background is largely in nutrition and in sciences. So I studied nutrition at UBC for my undergrad. Then I went on to study naturopathic medicine at the Boucher Institute of Naturopathic Medicine. There are 2 schools in Canada, 1 in Toronto, and then we're really lucky to have 1 in BC. So it's a 4-year post-grad program. As Ken had mentioned, my goal is to help my patients feel their best from inside and out. And with that is required a lot of different modalities. So I've gotten different certifications in acupuncture, IV therapy, chelation therapy, filler, Botox, things like that, to be able to help my patients the best as I can. A bit about me. So I was born and raised in Vancouver. I would describe myself as a health enthusiast. And the reason why is because I have struggled with my own health issues in terms of my digestion and some hormonal things. I have a large family history of diabetes, colon cancer, high blood pressure, heart disease. I have a lot of things in my family history, and I've witnessed them. And that has all combined to me realizing that health is really the most important thing. It's this foundation to be able to live a healthy, happy life. And then some things that I love are food, yoga, and skincare. That's me in a nutshell. This is my team here. So I am in the bottom, second from the right in the bottom row, back when I had bangs and I thought they were maintainable, but they're not. This is a bit of an old picture. So this is our team here. I work at the Ivy Health Center in Yaletown. And then a bit about naturopathic medicine. So how many of you guys have seen a naturopathic doctor before? Is there a way for hands to be risen? Okay, yeah. Awesome. Some hands. Kind of, I'll flip through the pictures. So naturopathic medicine is quite a large term. The simplest put is that we are similar to a primary care provider. So I'm able to write similar blood tests that your family doctor would write. And a lot of times I work as that primary healthcare provider because unfortunately we have a lot of shortages of family doctors here in Vancouver. And as in naturopathic medicine, our goal is to find out what is the root cause of how you're feeling. So why is it that you feel tired? What is the root cause of it? How can I help you feel better now and then long term? And with that comes a lot of different modalities, so different treatment options. And now I want to hear about you. So in the chat, I'd love if you could write your name, a fun fact about you, if you want, and then what you want to get from this presentation today, because I want to make this as valuable as possible for you. So if you could try to type things down, and I'll give you a minute or so to do that. Can I see from just this one Zoom group chat, right? Oh, there you
Did you get it figured out?
go. Is anyone typing? Okay. Golf? Ooh, music and guitar, Harold. Cool. Oh, very cool. We have a retired nurse. We have paddlers and a few different things. Okay, can everyone see that chat? Think so, right? Awesome. Okay, I'll let those roll in. I won't keep you waiting. I'll read through that. And then let's talk about why weight loss. So I've listed a lot of reasons here. So lowered blood pressure, decreased risk of diabetes, improved cholesterol levels, heart disease. The list goes on and on about why weight loss. And I do want to address that with weight loss, there's a lot of complexities behind that term weight loss. And sometimes some negative connotations behind dieting and body image and things like that. So when I say the term weight loss, what I actually really want to mean is achieve your most optimal body composition so that you're living a very healthy and happy life. So when I say weight loss, that's what I'm saying, but it's a little long to say those words. So imagine that's what I'm saying when I say the word weight loss. So here we go, 3 main weight loss hurdles. I'm going to go into the physiology behind the weight loss hurdles in a bit of detail. And the reason why is because I really believe that knowledge is power. I want my patients to be able to take their own health into their own hands so that you can get the tools that you need to live a really healthy life long term. Okay, so the first hurdle is hormones. This is a really, really big one. I'm going to categorize this into 3 main categories. So your stress hormones, your sex hormones, and your thyroid hormones. And I'll talk a little bit about each one. Okay, so stress hormones. When I think of stress, I think of the adrenal glands. So on here, I don't know if you can see my mouse. As I'm circling around the adrenal gland here, your adrenal gland is one of the glands that are important for stress management. It's in charge of a few different things, including electrolyte balance, but also one of your main stress hormones, cortisol. So this is an example of how cortisol should be secreted throughout the day. So this is your stress hormone. When you wake up in the morning, your cortisol should be nice and high, so it helps you get up, get going throughout the day. And then as you go through the day, it should gradually decrease over time so that by nighttime, it's nice and low so that you can go to sleep and stay asleep and have a sound sleep. Melatonin has the opposite curve to this cortisol. So it's low during the morning, and then it's going to spike during the nighttime so that you're able to have a good night's sleep. And this is a healthy version of your cortisol curve. Cortisol is your fight and flight hormone as well too. So imagine if you're going for a hike and a bear runs out at you and jumps up at you, then you get scared and you feel, ooh, that cortisol spike. And it's there for a good reason, because you either need to fight the bear, which hopefully you wouldn't have to, or you need to run away from the bear. And cortisol, when it spikes, that helps your body to make more sugar. So it's a released blood sugar. And then that signals for your body to make something called insulin, which brings that sugar from your blood into your cells so that you can use it as energy to run or fight. So it's a protective mechanism. But what happens over time is if you're going through a ton of stress, so you're stressed throughout the day and you're getting these spikes all the time, then this curve doesn't look like this nice high in the morning and low in the evening. It becomes dysregulated over time. And with that comes something called insulin resistance. So that's when your insulin is not able to work as optimally as we would like. And this is not saying that there is diabetes going on or anything like that. This is saying that it's not as optimal as we would like. And where does that sugar go if it's not brought into cells? That sugar gets converted over towards adipose tissue, so fat tissue. And then it becomes this vicious cycle of putting on more fat tissue the more stressed you are. So you can see how stress has a big impact on weight gain, but it's through different mechanisms like blood sugar regulation. One other way that cortisol can have a big impact on weight is with appetite control. So this cortisol melatonin curve, this helps you to sleep really well at night. And you might notice that if you haven't gotten a good night's sleep, the next day you might feel really hungry and you're like eating to try to stay energized. And this is because there's a little hormone called ghrelin that is really, I almost call it gremlin because in my mind I think of it as like a gremlin because it makes your appetite increase. So it's called ghrelin. And what it does is that it makes you feel hungrier and it makes your body store energy as fat because it's like, oh, you're tired, you must need more. So it's like a little gremlin that makes you want to eat more and more. And cortisol and melatonin has a big interaction with ghrelin. So those are some examples of how stress and cortisol affects weight. Okay, we have our sex hormones. So this is an example of a woman's hormones throughout the cycle. So you have your estrogen, your progesterone, your LH, FSH. And this is just to show that there's many different fluctuation of your hormones throughout the month. And some of the main culprits for weight gain is when these hormones are not within a good regulation of each other. So let's take estrogen, for example. So for women that are going through menopause, the ovaries are starting to go to sleep and it's not making as much estrogen. And what happens is that your fat cells start to take over in that production because estrogen is good for you. It's protective and you need it to have your heart be healthy, for your bones to be strong. But what can happen when the creation of estrogen from the ovaries is not as optimal, then when the fat cells takes over, then it becomes a lot of abdominal fat. So with that, helping a woman going through that change to support the production of estrogen is really important. And then if we think about men, some men have what we call man boobs. So they have a little bit more weight around their chest. And this is often a sign of high estrogen. And for these men, we think, oh, the liver is really in charge with estrogen detoxification. So the liver is helping with their liver to detoxify their estrogen there's two different mechanisms called hydroxylation and methylation. So those two pathways are really important for those men because that's a sign that they're not processing their estrogen as well. So these are just a couple examples of how your sex hormones can impact your weight. Another one would be progesterone. So progesterone is a natural diuretic, so it helps your body to get rid of water weight. And if we look at the chart there, I'm going to put my mouse through the chart. During this part of the cycle, so that luteal phase, progesterone should be high and then slowly it dips. So some women that go through menstruation, before their menstrual cycle comes, they notice that they feel bloated and they feel like they have water weight. And this is because the progesterone has dipped low. And for some women, this progesterone starts dipping way sooner than we want it to, and then maybe it's even lower. And for those women, they have a lot more of water weight, ankles that are puffy hands, puffy face, things like that. And it's not fat that they have, it's water weight that's there. So looking at what is the hormone that's affected here and what aspect that it's affecting within your body is important for weight. Our next hormone is the thyroid. So the thyroid is a little hormone that sits on your neck here. It's a butterfly-shaped hormone, and it's in charge of a ton of different functions in the body, from water weight to energy to temperature regulation to mood to some things with skin. It has a lot of different things that it's in charge of, including metabolism. But here's a little diagram on your thyroid. So we have TSH here. Hope you guys can see my mouse. So TSH is released from your brain, and it gets your thyroid, so this gland here, to make T4 and T3. Your T4 is the inactive type of thyroid hormone, and T3 is the active type of thyroid hormone. And these ones tells your brain to make less TSH. So it's this cycle that happens. And with conventional testing through a walk-in doctor or family doctor, often what's tested is the TSH. And this is to rule out if there's a disease or not. And it's one of the most accurate tests. Oops. There we go. But for people who may have, for example, if you're going through menopause, estrogen and thyroid hormone have a bigger interaction. Or for people who are really struggling with weight loss and maybe they feel like they have a little bit of bogginess in here on their throat, that's when looking at a full thyroid panel is helpful to know if, is it T3 that's low? Is it T4 that's low? Is it the conversion to T4 to T3? So there's a lot of different things that can be helpful for this process. For example, your microflora, so the good bacteria in your digestive tract, that's involved in that inactive to active thyroid conversion. So it tells me when testing a full thyroid panel, what is it exactly that we need to do to help your thyroid work most optimally. So hurdle number 2, diet and nutrient deficiencies. This is a big one. We all know that what you eat can affect your weight, and the opposite is true in that it's a diet and the nutrients that you get have a big impact on losing weight. So it's a tool as well. The first way is by, one of the most common ways that I work with diet is by testing for food sensitivities. How many people have tested their food sensitivities before? No, I see a lot of no's and a couple yeses. So food sensitivities, I want to explain what it is and why we test for it. So in the bottom here, we see the antibody classification. There's IgG, IgE, IgD, IgM, IgA. So these are essentially soldiers of your immune system within your body. And they are very helpful and needed in the body, but they can be not helpful at times. So for example, if you have an allergy to peanuts, you eat a peanut and then your throat swells, your face swells, and you get really puffy and you maybe stop breathing. That is the IgE antibody that's responsible for that. It can take a couple hours to develop. It could take minutes to develop. So that is a food allergy. Food sensitivity, on the other end, is the IgG antibody. And now this is one of the main ways that we measure this at the moment. I'm assuming that in 10 years, we'll have many different ways of testing for food sensitivities, but IgG is the most useful way at the moment, and it's a blood test. And this can develop over a day. It could develop after 2 days. So that's why it's hard to pinpoint what a person can be sensitive to, because it can take so long for your body to make that antibody. So how do food sensitivities develop? This is one of the main questions that I get from my patients when we're looking at food sensitivities and diet. If we look at this picture here, you see that these are the cells of your intestines. And between the cells are tight junctions. So they're the spaces between your cells. And they should be really strong and touching each other like that. But what can happen is that damage can happen to the intestinal lining. So toxins, stress, alcohol, caffeine, yeast, your microflora not being within good balance. And this can cause what we call leaky gut. So the spaces between those cells are a bit widened. And imagine you eat your food, and then instead of just passing through and you eliminating the food, it goes through between those tight junctions into your bloodstream. Your body sees that food there and is like, oh, that's not supposed to be there. I'm going to make antibodies to it. And it makes a bunch of antibodies and it causes inflammation. And from their point on, cortisol can spike, weight can gain, your weight can go up, and things like that happen. So it's this cycle of damage to food sensitivities. And one of the most common questions I get with this is, will I have to avoid all of these foods forever? And a lot of patients ask me that. And the answer is no. My goal is that you can eat whatever you want and feel fine, in moderation, of course. When we heal up those tight junctions, get your digestive tract really strong, then those foods aren't passing into your bloodstream. And at that point, most people can eat what they want without feeling affected by it. Okay, so on to some common nutrient deficiencies. So iron is a really big cause of fatigue for a lot of my patients, and it's a really common deficiency. I would say that out of menstruating women that come in, 90% or so come with iron deficiency. And iron is really important for a few different reasons. If we think about your red blood cells carry your oxygen. It's kind of your life force. And if you think about the structure of your red blood cells, imagine this is your red blood cells. We have 4 hemoglobin chains, and that holds onto your iron that carries your oxygen around. So if you don't have that iron there, then your body, your red blood cells essentially isn't carrying out oxygen for you to be able to function. And then we think, okay, if you're trying to lose weight and you're exercising really hard and you're trying to food prep and you're doing all these things to try to lose weight, but you don't have enough iron, it's almost like you're doing all of it while holding your breath. And how difficult does that sound? Pretty darn difficult. So dealing with iron deficiency is a really, really important thing. Next is B12. And it's interesting because B12 and iron have a close relationship. So B12 actually helps to bring that iron into those hemoglobin chains to hold on to the iron. And B12 is a pretty common deficiency. And the reason why is because, well, there's 3 main reasons that I find that B12 is deficient for a lot of my patients. So the first is absorption issues. So if you have poor digestion and you're not able to absorb it, your B12 might be a bit low. I see a question, how to deal with iron deficiency. That's a really good question. It's one of the same things as B12, where working on digestion and how well you're able to absorb your nutrients is really key. When it comes to women that are menstruating, for example, then it's quite an upward battle, because if your iron is down here and to build it here, it can take a really, really long time. So sometimes an iron infusion is most helpful. And that's something that your family doctor can give you a referral for, but often because, the healthcare system is so overtaxed with they don't have enough money essentially. So not a lot of people are able to get an iron infusion. So there's some private clinics that are available that I'll often refer my patients to, where they're able to get an iron infusion. So that's a good question. For B12, and injections are one of the main ways that people find that they're able to boost their B12 levels if they do have absorption issues. And a couple other reasons why people can be low on B12 are if they're really stressed. So if you're stressed, you are using up your B12 much more quickly. And then the third most common reason that I see is H. pylori. That's a bacteria that sits in your stomach that essentially eats up all the B12. And if you have that bacteria, then you're not even able to get that B12 to go down into your intestines to be absorbed. So B12, really important. Vitamin D. Vitamin D is a good one. So vitamin D deficiency is super common here. We live in quite a rainy environment. There's really tall buildings. We are not getting enough sun exposure here in Vancouver for most of the year. And if we think about vitamin D and weight gain and how those two link together, it makes a lot of sense. So we think about if it's wintertime and it's cold, and you're not getting enough sun, and you don't have enough vitamin D, then your body thinks, ooh, I need to protect myself. I need to put on that more weight. I need to put a blanket over myself so that I'm able to survive throughout the winter. So it's this protective mechanism. And there's a good amount of research linking obesity and vitamin D deficiency together. So vitamin D deficiency is a really important thing to look at. Okay, so the third hurdle. So this is the mental emotional aspect. This is a pretty big one, but it's a difficult one to explain because for each person, it's quite different. So I'll try to talk about some parts of the mental emotional aspect of weight loss. So the first is a all or nothing thinking. For some people that come in to see me, they have this attitude of either complete success or complete failure. And with that attitude often comes going really hard on a weight loss attempt and then all of a sudden going down towards nothing. And it's quite a tough thing to have this mentality because it creates this vicious cycle of going towards unhealthy habits. And I think here it's important to remember that this process is not linear and there's a lot of ups and downs with weight loss, and an all or nothing thinking can make things really difficult. And if it's your tendency towards that type of thinking, then being aware of it is the most helpful thing. The next is personal trauma. So this is something that I learned in the earlier days of my practice where I had a patient who was really struggling with weight loss. And after working quite a while on weight loss, that person had realized that it was from a lot of abuse that they had when they were younger that created this belief that if they are putting on more weight, that it will keep them from further abuse. So personal trauma can have a big impact on how you feel about your body and how it can affect your views on weight loss, even if it's an idea that's suppressed that might not be out in the open in your mind. And there's a good amount of research linking obesity to trauma and abuse, whether it's physical or mental, emotional, or sexual abuse. And for each person, it might not be a humongous trauma that they have that is the biggest impact for weight loss, but it could be something that is impacting their everyday habits and how you're grocery shopping and how you're making decisions about your food. So I think it's something that's important whenever anyone comes in wanting to lose weight to think about, is there some kind of mental, emotional, traumatic component behind why losing weight might be difficult. So as you can see, there are many different causes of weight loss, or many hurdles to weight loss, and a lot of them interact together. So we have your hormones, your stress hormones, your sex hormones, your thyroid hormones, and that can affect your metabolism, your appetite, your water weight. We have our diet, and we have the stressors in our life and a mental emotional aspect, which can affect diet, and which can affect your cortisol, which can affect your blood sugar. So it's all interrelated together. So I'm going to go through a couple simple tips that you can take away from today to help with your weight loss journey. Weight loss is so individual, but some of these are the most common ones that I find that my patients are like, yes, it works really well for me. So tip number one is to use food as medicine. I'm all about food preparation. I think a lot of us are quite busy. There's a lot of things to do in life. And I often will have patients come in where they're like, okay, I'm all gung-ho. I'm going to prep so much food. I'm going to be the best cook ever. And then it falls through after a few weeks. So I emphasize efficient food preparation, because what is maintainable for you long term? Not just a few weeks of being a great chef, but what can you do months at a time, and what can you be flexible with? Second is to grocery shop while full, because if you're grocery shopping hungry, you can buy a lot of things that are not the best for you. Number three is fiber, fat, and protein with every single meal. Blood sugar regulation is really key for most people. So making sure that you're full and that blood sugar doesn't spike is really important. And then number four, healthy eating hygiene. I think that we all have a relationship with food, and a lot of us, and I'm guilty of this myself, I will eat while doing something. I will run from one thing to another and then eat in a rush and not really sit down and taste my food. And this is not the healthiest thing to do for a lot of different reasons, not just for the enjoyment part of it, but because it tells your body, I'm stressed and I'm not able to digest this food, and it makes it really difficult for your body to be able to process those nutrients. So healthy eating hygiene is important. And the number five is to consider food sensitivity testing. Food sensitivity testing is the tool. If you have been really struggling with your diet, then it gives you a list in front of you of what foods you're most sensitive to, what foods you're not, so that you have a specific list in front of you to work with. So it's a really helpful tool. Tip number two is to prioritize restorative sleep. So one is to sleep before midnight. Your cortisol levels mimic the sun. So when you are sleeping later and later, even if you're waking up later during the day, your sleep is usually not as restful as it would be if you're sleeping earlier, say before midnight. So follow your natural circadian rhythm and sleep before midnight. Follow a healthy sleep hygiene. I think we've all kind of heard the word sleep hygiene around. And there's a lot of different aspects, and I could probably talk an hour about sleep hygiene, but essentially making sure you have sunlight during the day, stay away from the screens during the night, have a nice relaxing environment to go to sleep to. And then three, to consider hormone testing. If you've been struggling with your sleep and with your energy, and you're wondering what does your cortisol curve actually look like, this is a really helpful tool to be able to see when do we actually want to help cortisol be higher, when do we want it to help it to be lower, and also what are your other hormones looking and how is it affecting your energy and your sleep. And then third is appropriate exercise. I say the word appropriate because I often, again, will hear from a lot of patients where they're like, okay, I'm going to go so gung-ho, I'm going to do the gross grind every single day, and they feel drained afterward. And I think that this can create this vicious cycle of exercising and then not exercising at all. I think the most appropriate exercise for a person is where they exercise to the point where you feel energized and sweaty and, you know, a little drained, a little bit of a challenge, but not like you're dizzy and you can't stand up afterward. And focusing on exercise that you like as well. So doing exercise with Symmetrix, for example, with Dasha and their team is really good and keeps you accountable. So I think appropriate, good exercise for you that you like. And then consider nutrient deficiency testing. If you feel like you cannot handle any exercise and you just can't get going with it, maybe you're iron deficient, maybe your B12 is low. Those things will help you to be able to get going on the exercise that you want. And the most important factor is to target your individual hurdles. So everyone is so different. We all have different genetics and preferences, and our background's different, our lifestyle's different. Everything can be so different. So being able to target what exactly is your individual hurdle is really important. Weight loss can be really a struggle for a lot of patients, and it can be frustrating. So if you're jumping over different hurdles that are not yours, then you're going in a zigzag motion. So treating and targeting your individual hurdles. And programs. So I'm a big fan of organization, accountability, and programs. Big fan of those things. So at our clinic here, we have our weight loss programs. There's a few different options, and I can talk a bit more about this if you guys are curious. We call it the 6-week weight loss program. That's partially because we have a rapid HCG method, where usually men lose a pound or a pound and a half per day, and women usually lose half a pound to a pound per day. So it's quite a quick, rapid method, and usually I have to screen to make sure that that's the right fit for you. Or there's the customized plan, which usually involves looking at what are your hurdles. Is it food sensitivities? Is it high cholesterol or diabetes? Is it more of a lifestyle thing? Is it a stress thing? Is it an estrogen thing? Is it a progesterone thing? How do we customize? Maybe it's a Paleolithic diet. Maybe it's a ketogenic diet. Maybe it's a cardiometabolic diet. So there's lots of different options and supplemental support for a customized plan. And this also includes check-ins and measurements and accountability, as well as options for nutrients that you might be deficient in or that are helpful for most people to be able to boost their energy and metabolism. So that's the programs that we have. And then any questions? So I put all my information below because I know that it was really hard to see everyone's faces. I feel like I'm talking to my wall a little bit and then trying to look at each face there. So I'm not sure if I've spoken really fast, but I'm always open for questions. My email is there. I put my Instagram there as well too. I answer questions there too. So if anyone has questions that you didn't want to ask out in the open today, you can always email me. But if you have any questions, feel free to ask.
Dr. Cave, just before we jump to questions, I'll thank everybody, and then I'll stop recording. Maybe we can go back to the group view. But yeah, thank you so much for that amazing presentation. So informative, and I learned so much about the specific hurdles that people go through to lose weight. And yeah, really well delivered. I want to thank everyone for being on the call. I see a lot of familiar faces, some people from our networking group, some new people, so that's really exciting. And thank you all so much for being here.